Okay, I'm going to do a review and installation of this tailgate support shock. I'll be installing it on my 2011 Ford F-150. That's what this kit is specified for various years. It says here that it'll fit a 04 to 2011. And the part number looks suspiciously like the part number for the DZ model of this. This is a generic version of the DZ. Just funny that it has the same part number, and even on the back of this package here it's the same DZ 43200. So I don't know if they're all made out of the same factory or what. The big difference I see here is it doesn't say DZ on the strut assembly or shock, whatever you want to call it. It says cool, man. And then there's some bunch of writing, high pressure, whatever. And that's it. So, yeah, so when I purchased it, it was listed as a tailgate lift assist support or something along those lines, premium, and then the part number 43200. Like I said, DZ makes a version of this, and there's also another company called Stabilis which makes a version of this as well. I have seen out there two different versions of the DZ one for the F-150. I can't say for other models, but for the F-150 there's this version which has the the dual ball joints for the top and bottom, and there's the ball joint cups. And there's another version where the top part of the hydraulic cylinder slash strut assembly, whatever you want to call it, has what looks like the top part of the cable, your tailgate support cable. It looks like that, where it's, instead of this ball cup, it's welded on here instead of the ball cup, and it has the same hole and keyway slot type deal that the cable has that goes on, and it pops on in the same fashion that the cable pops on to the upper cable support bolt that's mounted to the bed of the truck. Some people say they like that version better. I think I prefer this version better since I'm doing more of a permanent install. If you're somebody that takes your tailgate on and off on a regular basis, you may want to look for that older version. I don't know if it's just people that have old inventory that they're selling off, or if DZ is still making the older version. I'm not really sure, but you can find them online. If I could find them, I'll put links in the description to both versions of these, if I could find them. So this is what comes in the package. Installation manual. See here, not bad instructions. This is my first time looking it over. Seems to be pretty self-explanatory. I have seen other videos that people did online where they were having issues with the Nutsert that's on this special tool. This brass looking part, or whatever zinc coated, whatever coating that is on there, that goldish looking part, that's the Nutsert that goes in, and the rest of this is just a tool that enables you to compress this Nutsert. And you can see there's little slits in it, and it flares out. So as you tighten it up in the hole, this part up here pulls down on the bolt, and this part with the cut in it flares out. There's 4 of them. So there's 4 cuts, and there's 4 little arms or whatever there, and they all flare out and hit the back side of the metal of which you have the hole in where this inserts, and that's what clamps it on there. I did notice that the hole in the tailgate is a little elongated and it looks like it'll be a loose fit. So I was going to get some stainless washers or something that were a snug fit on here and put one on the outside and then open up the tailgate and reach in there and put one on the inside and then put this in. But I may just put it on as it is so I can do a fair assessment as to how it works the way it was intended to be installed, and see if I have the problem that some other people have said they had, where it tends to get loose and starts rocking around inside the bed and they end up having to try to reinforce it. So I'm debating on whether I'm going to just install it as is or put some washers in there to kind of prevent the problem that may arise. But yeah, so that's your tool. And what it is, it's just it's an Allen head bolt, and there's a jam nut on there that screws down, and then there's two what look to be hardened washers and a little focus. There's a little carrier in there with ball bearings. Looks like there's 5 or 6 ball bearings, I think 5, and they look probably hardened as well. And then from my understanding, you put this in, I don't know, I haven't read the instructions yet, but you put it in and you make it, I guess, hand tight or something. I'm not sure, I gotta read it. And then you hold this stationary with the Allen wrench and turn the nut. That's what you do. And then the jam nut pulls this whole assembly together and squeezes that. So we'll see how that goes anyway. But so and then it also comes with the Torx wrench. That's for when you're working on the top part of the assembly, where it hooks onto the cable bolt up on top on the bed. And then when you take the bolt out, this will go on, and then the bolt goes back in, and your cable clips back on over that. And then you once you're done putting the Nutsert in, then the bottom ball stud screws in with some Loctite that they give you. And that's it. And these instructions, oh, there's another side here as well. So I'll give you a view at that. There's the upper bolt I was talking about, where the cable comes off the upper bolt. And they show installing it, and then clipping it on there, and then clipping it onto the bottom, and then I guess tightening up the upper bolt. That's it for the instructions. So looks like there's 7 steps according to this. Step 7. So I'll get out there and install this thing, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a 5mm H5 Allen head, Allen wrench. Now you can use the regular old style Allen wrenches. I'm using this, which goes on my socket wrench. That's a H5, 5mm. It seems like you could also get away with a 3/16, although that's really loose in there, but I guess in a pinch you might be able to make that work. 3/16 Allen. Then you're going to need a 10mm wrench to go onto the jam nut, and then a 13mm wrench, or maybe even you could use a 13mm socket, probably it looks like, with a socket wrench on that as well. Looks like it would fit in there. I'm using a 13mm wrench. And then to take the upper tailgate cable mount bolt off, they give you a wrench that's included in the kit. It's funny enough, it's a security Torx, but this isn't a security fastener, so I don't know what's up with that, but it seems to fit and be the right type. Security on both ends, that's weird. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with taking this bolt out, and then I'll put this plate on there as they call for and go from there. And I just realized that is a T50 Torx, which is what they say in the instructions. Instead of using this wrench, I'm using my 3/8 socket and an extension and a T50 on that, just so I can zip it out a little quicker. That's all. But this wrench would do the job just fine if that's all you have, and that's what they give you. So, alright, I'm actually doing this step first. They're showing it in reverse order. They're showing to do the jam nut first. It doesn't really matter, I guess, which way you do it. I'm just doing that first. We'll see how that goes. Also, you will need a razor blade or a pair of scissors or something to cut the tip of this off, because the tip is molded shut for the Loctite. I just took a little razor knife and put it on a hard surface and just cut the tip off. It's nice and easy that way. If you use scissors, it may squish the tip, and you know, it'll still work either way. So, something I thought you should know. Okay, now you can see how I got it positioned. I did put a little bit of Loctite on the bolt that they supply. I don't see where it says that in the instructions, but I did go ahead and apply a little Loctite. You can see the position I got. I'm trying to get it as parallel as possible with that body line right there. Best I could. It's close. I didn't want it going back against this because there is a little curvature in the metal, and I wanted to make sure this plate was sitting fairly flat. Which, let me turn the flash on here. I don't know if that helped much, but you can see it's pretty flat on the metal there. And then we can just take our, now I'm using my knees, lifting up slightly on the bed, and then click that back in. And there we go. I did the same taking that off. Instead of popping the cable off, which you can use your upper thigh of your legs and lift up on this a little bit and pretty much grab that with your finger, slide it off like this. See? Or you can get a little screwdriver in there if you can't get it with your fingers, and just pry that little clip out and pop it off. And then it, as you can see, it goes on like this and then down, and it clips on. And that's it for that part. And you can see how it looks there. And now we'll go on to the Nutsert. Like I said, I would prefer to get 2 thick washers, because this hole is fairly big for this Nutsert. You can see I could put that Nutsert in there, and I can move it around, and you can see just how big that hole is in there. I'm not very fond of that. I wish they would have supplied some hardened washers or something for this, so you could put one on the outside, one on the inside, and then compress it, and it would clamp the washers on both sides, give it a more snug fit, I would imagine. But I'm debating if I should just do it like this, and I'm probably just going to do it like this and see how it works. I just hate to have to go online and order another Nutsert, because guys have been saying these have been coming loose, and I don't know if that's due to them just not tightening them all the way properly. Some guys are saying they've made them gone way more turns than what the instructions say. So I guess the learning curve is in doing and seeing how it goes. But yeah, it's a pretty good, it's an oval hole, as you can see. It's not even round. So that being said, I wish they would have done something a little more to make it more secure in there. And also, using my 3/8 drive ratchet and my 6-inch extension, you really don't need an extension. I just did it so I can hold on to it like this, push it in, and get more leverage. I made it damn near as tight as I could make it by hand. That's how tight I made that, so that this plate wouldn't move around on me at all. And it is tight. I mean, I did it pretty tight. I don't think you're going to strip it out by hand. As long as you don't use a lever bar or something on this, you should be okay. And just do it. I did it as pretty much as snug as I can make it without putting all my body weight in it, you know. But relatively pretty snug. This washer is a little convex or concave depending on how you look at it, and it does seem to flatten out as you tighten it, so that also helps make it solid as well. Alright, now I'm going to move on to installing the Nutsert. We'll see how this goes. Okay, in the instructions here, they're saying to mark one side of the bolt. As you can see there, I marked it with I have a silver marker here. It's a Sharpie, metallic silver Sharpie marker. It's halfway dried out, but it was enough to give me a little bit of a mark on the nut there. You can see it. That way you can count the turns as you turn it. So they're saying to do 3/4 of an inch from the bolt head to the washer, but I'm slightly under that. As you can see, I'm just slightly under 3/4 of an inch. Not much, but a little bit, because I don't want to go too much more, because you want all the threads catching on this Nutsert, and as you can see, there's no more threads sticking out. So I'm like right where I want to be with that. I don't want to, you know, have that bolt being in more and not catching all the threads on the Nutsert. Just more of a chance you could strip your Nutsert out. So I'm gonna leave it like that and go from there. And I decided I'm not using washers, because the depth of this part where it bends right there at the, I don't know if you want to call that the fulcrum of the arm where it bends, we'll call that the elbow. It doesn't look like there's a lot there, and I'm just not sure if that would be long enough to accommodate adding 2 more washers to the thickness of what it already has to clamp onto, which is the tailgate metal body itself and the hinge mounting plate. Those 2 thicknesses together, I'm not sure how thick this metal is, but those 2 thicknesses together, I'm sure and assuming that they accounted for that when they picked this specific Nutsert for this kit. So I fear that adding any more thickness to it might compromise it. And then if it should happen to fail, then it's my fault for installing it as it wasn't specified to be installed. So if I install it as they specify in their instructions and then it fails, then I'll have a gripe. But I'm going to do as they say and see how this works out. Okay, and another thing I want to add here, upon looking at this, you can see my orientation. I guess you can pick how you want to orient that Nutsert, but I'm thinking about doing it where the slot, the cut is pointing up, because my logic is then I'll have a leg going this way and a leg going that way at an angle, instead of one leg going over here and kind of partly in this open hole, because I am going to put the Nutsert more out here. My theory is just to give the shock a little more leverage in letting this down, so I'm going out here rather than in there. That's the way I'm doing it. I don't really see, they don't really say on the instructions as far as where to put it in the hole. But it appears when you look here, you can't see the hole on the right side of the Nutsert, and they're shooting it from the right angle, so the hole must be more on the left side. Or I guess it could be positioned where it's right in the middle, I don't know. But so it's either I can just throw it in there randomly, or I can do it with some thought behind it. And if I put it this way, where the leg is facing up, then I'd have a leg going up, one going down, one going left, one going right. But if it's on this side of the hole, the one going left isn't going to be grabbing as good over there. So that's why I'm doing it, I guess you could say, a little sideways, where the legs are making more like an X pattern in relation to the horizontal line of the tailgate. So they're going more like an X pattern like this, the legs. So that's how I'm going to be installing it, and we'll see how this works out. Okay, so an issue I'm having is I set it the way they set it with the 3/4 offset. As I started spinning it, I turned it 5 times, okay? And then I noticed that the bolt, all that was happening is the bolt was turning out of the whole assembly, and it was not compressing this at all. So I backed the nut all the way back to the back of the Allen bolt head, and I tried it that way, and still the same thing. It's not compressing this. The whole bolt is just unscrewing out of the assembly and coming backward. So I'm going to try putting a little lube into these bearings here and help see if that reduces some friction, so this thing will start turning, and let's see what happens. Okay, so what I had to do here, I sprayed some lube on it, and still I was having the same issue with the bolt just unscrewing right through everything. So I grabbed this end here with a pair of pliers, cranked on the nut a couple of times, and got it to start spreading. So hopefully that'll reduce the load. Now that they're bent at an angle, they should be progressively easier to compress. And I got it to the point where it just goes through the hole in the bed. Any more and I won't be able to get the nutsert in the hole. So now I'm going to put it back in there and see if I can get it to compress now. Okay, so it's still not going. It looks like I'm going to have to get a pair of needle nose down in here. Grab this nutsert like so, try to hold it, and see if I can get a turn or so on that nut and get it to really start compressing, and then push it in there and see if it'll keep going. Not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Okay, so here's the consensus. I got it in there. It is more towards, we'll call it the top of the tailgate, the way I wanted it. You could see a little bit of the hole over there on the side. It is tight. The tool sucks. I still had the problem with trying to tighten it, and the whole bolt was just backing out, and it didn't seem to matter. Everybody's saying to hold the bolt head still and spin the nut, but it just wasn't working out. The whole nutsert was spinning. So by doing like I did and grabbing it with pliers and spinning the nut and holding the nutsert with pliers and getting it started spreading out, and keep doing it and testing it until it just goes in the hole. And then I actually had to take the, as you've seen, the needle nose and get down in there and hold the back side of this nutsert with the needle nose pliers. And I was right on the back side of the nutsert, right behind the head of it, holding it with needle nose while I was spinning the nut and getting the then I was able to get it to start compressing to the point where it compressed so much it wouldn't come out of the hole. Then I still had to hold it sideways with my well, obviously the tool's not in there, but I had the tool in, and I had my hex wrench in there, and I was holding it sideways to put some torque load on the nutsert in the hole while I kept tightening it until it started getting tighter and grabbing. Then I pushed it in all the way flush, and then I was able to continue with the process. That's how I had to do it to even get the tool to work for me. Otherwise it wasn't working. And I can imagine that's probably the problem a lot of people are having, is they probably think it's tight and it's not, because the bolt just starts coming out of the tool. It just screws right out of the nutsert. Even if you're holding the nut head still, and or the Allen head bolt still and spinning the nut, the jam nut, if these bearings aren't rotating the way they're supposed to be, and I lubed it too, and they weren't rotating, and instead the whole nutsert was spinning on the threaded bolt, and it was spinning off. So that's the issue I ran into. And once I got it to grab and it was starting to tighten, once it got to a certain part where it was tight enough, then I no longer needed the Allen head wrench in there. I was just able to use the 10 millimeter on the jam nut and just continue tightening it down. And I did it until I felt a good amount of resistance. You could feel it change in resistance. I know they say 9 turns, but it's very hard to count. I mean, just that little bit of lube wore off my mark on the nut, and the mark's gone pretty much. And you can't really count 9 turns if the nutsert is spinning and you can't see the nutsert because it's in the bed. You couldn't really see how much it was spinning, so I lost count and I got frustrated with it, and so I just went ahead to tightening it until the point where I felt a significant amount of resistance all of a sudden spike up. You could feel the resistance exponentially increase in a very short period of time when you get to that certain point. So once I got to that point, felt that resistance, and then I felt that high exponential resistance, and once it felt like it wanted to naturally stop, I just went a little bit more, like a quarter turn or so, and I was good. And then I loosened the jam nut, and it may have deformed the threads a little bit, I'm not sure, because I couldn't unscrew it by hand anymore, the Allen bolt. So I had to put my Allen wrench on it and unscrew it a little bit, and then it came out. So we're gonna see how it goes. I mean, I can't see how they expect you to count 9 turns on this when the whole nutsert is spinning on you. I don't know if other people have had the same problem, but I did. This is my first time doing it, so I'll finish the installation and show you how it is. Yeah, I decided to just switch over to a 13 millimeter deep socket, and it's much less frustrating to screw it in. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so here we have it. I got it up on there. We'll see what happens. Pretty good. She's working. We'll see how long it lasts. But for right now, it seems to be working. There it is, inserted. I snugged it up pretty well. I was careful not to over tighten it, but I snugged it, put a lot of Loctite on it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It was a little tricky putting it on. I suggest putting the bottom nut on, clipping it on the bottom first, and then carefully grab this part with 2 hands and put your elbows down on the bed, and then you can slowly lift. It's really hard to lift up for the first time because it's new. Slowly lift it up into place, and once you get it there, it pretty much will stay, and then you can snap it on your upper ball joint. So that's how I did it. The cable seems to have its own natural spot that it wants to go. We're gonna see how that works as far as wear. If it wears on the cable, it seems like there's just barely enough room in there to clear. It does clear the tail light nicely, and we will see how this works out. You can see there. It does seem to clear it okay. You can see here how it goes. You can see the cable falling in its own place. The cable does hit the top of the ball there, so it can only go so far, so then the cable starts flexing here. And you can see the other side, the cable has more of a natural arc, and it can go back to its home place. So I don't know if that's going to be a wear issue on this cable, having to do more flexing over time, maybe wearing the cable out, maybe not. I mean, it does flex all the time at the midpoint there, so but it might be making it flex a little more than it's used to. I don't know. You can see it down in there. It does seem like it's alright on the bottom arc of the cable. Maybe that's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it until if the cable breaks before the other one, then I can start being suspect of it. But it seems like it'll be alright. We'll see how it goes, but I mean, there it is. I'll drop it down again so you can see. There it is, no banging, nothing. It seems to, the cable's tight on this side. So I've seen some people say that the strut is not positioned right and it's holding the bed up and this cable slack. I'm not having that problem. Matter of fact, I think I lifted the strut a little higher than what the ball was and had to bring it down slightly to clip it on. So the length of the strut or the throw of the strut doesn't seem to be an issue on my truck. The cable's taut. If anything, this cable over here is a little slack, but that's not from that. That's just the inconsistencies of the manufacturing process. The bed, the tailgate could be slightly out of plane or whatever. The bed could be slightly tweaked. I don't even know if there's adjustment on these bolts. If there is, I can maybe adjust the bolt, but I mean, if I put weight on this side of the bed, then that cable tightens up fairly quickly. I mean, it's not too much of a concern. It was like that before too, so it could be in the manufacture of the cables. When they made the cables, one could be a 1/16 shorter than the other one. I mean, that's all it takes. Very slight inconsistency, but as long as both cables aren't slack. If both your cables are slack, then you got a problem with the strut supporting the tailgate, and you don't want that, because if you're putting weight on the tailgate, you could damage the strut. But in my case, yeah, it's the cable supporting the weight of the tailgate, not the strut. The strut is just to help lower it more easily. That's all it is. And you can see here, I'll pull it and I'll let go, and there it goes. And that's how it works. So I'm pretty happy with it. We'll see the longevity of the product. Even if I pick it up halfway like this and let it go, it still has yeah, I pick it up a little bit, let it go, pick it up a lot more, let it go. This is exceptionally good if you have small kids that may be climbing in and out around your truck, especially if you got 2 kids or more, and keep one from opening the tailgate and dropping it on the other one's head, or vice versa. It's a very good safety feature, not just for your kids, but it's a convenience feature for yourself as well. Just to have that, that's nice to be able to just pull that and let it go. I like it. So, alright, on to the next project. Catch you later.